Hi there, Kawhi here. In today's video I'll be teaching you guys how to play Mage, and specifically in Junkyard. We're gonna skip ahead just a little bit as the start of Junkyard is pretty similar for most people, I would say. You simply just get a shock bot, and after you get your shock bot you get to this pack. In this pack we have one scrap bot and we have one or two infiltrators, I'm not sure. This pack has the normalizer mob in it. This will spawn an enlarge debuff on the ads if it's not kicked. We can spell steal this and we'll be able to do 50% additional damage. If you guys are wondering what is going on, you can always look at the top of the screen. I'll be talking about that as well a little bit. We're just gonna pop our trinket, our orb trinket for mastery, and after that we're just simply gonna spam flame strikes. Unfortunately, as you can see from how the tank is moving, this was not the correct decision. Obviously, if the tank is moving like this, you obviously wanna spam pyroblast instead of flame strikes, as your flame strikes are not getting value if you are not tanking any mobs in those. So the correct choice was obviously to full send pyroblast, but the rotation for AoE, it is quite simple. All you have to do is simply get as many flame strikes as you are able to within your combustion window. We do this by starting off for combustion, first of all, with 2 infernal cascades. Let's go a little bit back. Or actually, it is also possible if, since we have a debuff stolen, the spell steal debuff, we don't really have time to hard cast a flame strike. Therefore, we just simply send a scourge with a pyroblast just to get 1 infernal stack, and then afterwards we're just going to be sending it full on full on AoE. We'll simply rotate our Phoenix Flames. In the meantime, we're trying to get as much uptime on Enlarge as we can get, as it's a 50% damage increase. And as you can see, the pack is dying before RCDs even ended. The key level is perhaps just a little bit too low on a 27. So let's talk a little bit about Fire Mage then in this dungeon. Fire Mage is pretty decent for this dungeon. Not only do you have the 50% damage increase, you also have many mobs like the Toxic Monstrosity, for instance, the one we're fighting right now. That is just like a pure single target damage target. But before that, let's just talk a little bit about what is happening in this frame or in this pool. As you can see, we are pulling the slime. The slime does a passive AoE burst, as you can see from the healing bars. Nobody's standing in anything, but we're taking this slime debuff, and this debuff on high keys, it is doing quite a lot, as you can see on the Fortified key. There is definitely argument to spam flame strikes to get the slimes down as fast as possible, but the Toxic Monstrosity, that is what you really just want to hard focus. But yeah, not much going on in this pack, but the main thing that you wanna, I would say it is almost a requirement as a Fire Mage, is to try to get as much single target out as possible. On these kinds of packs, you're not pulling 20 mobs like in Gambit, and where it is like highly beneficial to spam flame strikes. So the main reason why Fire Mage is even that good is because our single target damage, when specced into the Pyroblasm conduit, especially with your Mastery Orb, you're just going to be doing so much single target damage that is insanely beneficial for groups with, like, for instance, a Hunter and with a Destruction Warlock. Your AoE is already going to be set up for the group. The only thing that you really want is like a single target blaster. Here we're pulling the second Monstrosity of the dungeon. Without combustion, I ice block the slime bolt debuff off, and also to cancel the pool being done, But as you can see on like a 27, even these slimes, nobody's standing in anything, and people are literally dying over there. Yeah, but unfortunately we can't really do anything much about the slimes unless we're in our SKB combustion and flame striking. But if we do that well, the toxic monstrosity is quite, how do I say it? It's quite depressing if this mob lives for like a long time, because you're gonna get pulled multiple times. You just by having the mage combust solo target, it's gonna be insanely beneficial for the group, just because that almost feels like if you're playing with a ranged rogue. Rogue is pretty similar in that aspect, where it's not like we have funnel damage by any means, but we're just doing so much single target damage, which gets passed down passively through our Phoenix Flames. So we're just able to build a massive ignite, and then after we're building a massive ignite, we can spread those with Phoenix Flames. But yeah, as you can see from these pools, these are really challenging for the healer. For the range DPS, there's not much going on. You're just AFK in the back, trying to push out as much single target DPS on the monstrosity, because those smallies, the slimes, they were I mean, the whole group is literally dying from it if they're not dealt with immediately. So we're gonna get the last slime down, as well as we're gonna finish off the monstrosity. And like I said, with this group, you can just see by the overalls or by the damage done, it is not required for me to lose out on any form of single target damage, as the AoE is yeah, it is set up quite nice, I would say, which is, I would say, quite important as a mage. You really have to understand your role. It can be very easy to do like 30k overall or something like that, but the main thing that you want to focus on as a mage is try to blast as much single target while not losing out on AoE damage. We mainly do that by, just like now, we're simply single target combusting, and then we're sending Phoenix Flames into the prio target, and that spreads our ignite damage. So we're gonna get to the first boss. This boss is probably one of my favorite bosses in this dungeon, even though it has some passive damage that scale up pretty nastily with higher key levels. It is still just a pure mechanical check. There are multiple different ways you can deal with this boss. You can stand under the bots like people are doing. You can play like me, play from the back. There's no right or wrong there, as long as you just don't get hit by anything, which is why I really love this boss. It's just fully on your own, just to outplay it, else you'll just get punished insanely hard for that. So we got PI there. Let's talk a little bit about PI. Power infusion, it is decently good for our single target combustion, even in packs like the ones before. Like, let's say we were getting PI on this trash pack, it would be totally fine. And that is a similar case for this situation, as we're simply doing our single target rotation. Our single target rotation becomes better with PI, as our cooldown timing for Fire Blast gets reduced. We also get at least half a GCD from gaining PI and just doing our normal rotation. It's gonna feel a lot faster that way. And the reason why we're getting PI is because Fire Mage is probably one of the higher single target DPSs, as we just don't lose out on anything, either on AoE. Well, we lose about 20% of our AoE if we do our single target rotation. So as you can see here, I use my second combustion of the fight around 1 minute mark. There was perhaps an argument for holding this, but it's fine. I got my Entombra proc, so I just felt it was right for like just pumping DPS at that moment. We're gonna save orb. Orb is a pretty nice trinket if you're doing single target dungeons, such as this one. Grimroll Depot is also a nice example for that, where Orb is just insanely good. But for AoE dungeons, or especially like high tyrannical keys, your trinket choices will definitely vary. The trinkets I'm talking about will be mainly Sigil, the Grenade Trinket, those kind of trinkets that give like a verse at like a on-demand verse trinkets. Verse is not mandatory at all for this key, as you can see, but for higher keys you want to start stacking verse, as mage is gonna take so much damage intake. So we're just gonna do our normal rotation. We're gonna again cast Scourge just to start our rotation, and then afterwards we're simply just going to be doing our single target rotation. Even though there are multiple mobs on the screen, you can see there are multiple mobs on the screen, but we're not flame striking. There's a very valid reason for that, as we have 2 scrap bots and we have an infiltrator. There is no prio target basically. We can basically choose any of these mobs and just single target them down, and from there spread our passive cleave with our Phoenix Flames. There obviously is always an argument for banning on these kind of packs with Flame Strike Conduit and just fully spamming Flame Strike. It's just that after the first pool where the tank was moving the mobs, I just it's pretty wise to do your single target rotation if the tank isn't placing it in flame patches and stuff. Unfortunately, the scrapbot cost exhaust during the literal GCD where the SKB would hit, so just out of straight tilt, we're flame striking anyway. Besides that, the main thing you want to keep an eye out is for the blasters as well as for the mechanics. The blasters are quite annoying on high keys. They tend to do a lot of passive damage to you, which can lead to spicy intakes. So we're going to be taking it quite chill here. As you can see, the tank is not chaining anything. He's just waiting for cooldowns to come back up, mainly talking about coordinated assault. There is an argument to pull this pack with the mini boss, just because the Warlock is getting insanely much funnel damage from that, and well, I mean the Hunter doesn't really gain anything. It's just that the pack is just gonna be dead passively if this was tanked under the mini boss, for instance. So for the mini boss, there are certain ways to play the mini boss. From my perspective, it is best to hold your combustion for the shield. The shield on high keys is going to be 400 to, well, about 350k, and that is just a lot to blast through. Unfortunately, this pack includes 2 blasters as well as 2 scrappers. We want to get rid of those, so that's mainly the reason why I just full send this combustion. Yeah, just look at those shoots. These guys, the blasters, they are, I would say, probably the second most annoying mob. The spider or the crawler that is coming up soon, that is probably the most annoying pack. And as you can see there, just look how fast this shield burns. I do believe we had all cooldowns for that. We also had our SKB lined up perfectly for that. Not much going on besides that. I'm just simply doing my single target rotation, trying to keep as many SKBs from not falling off, as well as trying to keep up my Infernal Cascade as long as possible. So it's going down fairly soon. As you can see from that pack, we were just simply doing our single target rotation, and we only lost about 20% of what the AoE classes were doing. But we're just doing single target damage. We're trying to get as much single target damage out whenever possible. That is the only reason you would even bring the mage. And this is where we're gonna get into the most difficult pack in this dungeon. This pack, it has one crawler, one mechanic, one infiltrator, two blasters, yeah. This mob is gonna do the highest damage intake, or not the highest, but the most spiky intake. It's gonna be, if you were to get a graph in front, you would just, like, it would be a straight line upwards. Whereas many other damage, they would be more getting inclined slowly, whereas this one jumps up immediately. Once it does its coil, I think it's believed, that one is probably gonna do at least 80 to 90%, perhaps even 100% of your HP if you're not using health stones, defensives. So we're just gonna cast our orb, and we're gonna go into our single target rotation. And as you can see, just the scrap alone is doing like 60% of the HP, and there we go. Just look at what happens once this thing is cast. It's called Shock Coil. Just look at it, just one tick of it, that's one tick, and you still have 4 more to go. This is within GCDs, it is quite, as you can see, I've already buffed my alter time just to make sure I would survive this. Definitely do not feel afraid to use defensives on this trash pack. It is insanely hard, as you can see. Just anything can go wrong, as you're already taking insanely amount of damage. Perhaps there's something going wrong in melee, or like a blaster is shooting you, perhaps. You're just gonna get one shot. It's insane how much this mob actually impacts your decision making. As you can see there, we propped our cheat dead. We just went a little bit too slow while the explosion was happening, but at the same time we dodged that. It was actually the blaster. The blaster hit me, and that procced my cheat dead, but fortunately we had alter time, we were able to cheese through that, and this is where things get really scary, as we won't be able to survive another shocked coil. So yeah, we're just trying to do as much single target as possible, and we decided just to block it. It's we don't want to play. We don't want to be out there once it's casting without any form of cooldowns or defensive cooldowns up. There was a reason for not blocking there, but that only would be if there would be another shock coil. Let's say the mob was on 30%, and if I blocked, well, then I'm not doing damage. So that's the only situation where you don't want to block the second one. The first one you can obviously mirror image and alter time cheese that shit. But yeah, looking at this pack is probably one of my favorite packs, actually. There's just like 5 or 6 mobs, and they're all melee, they're all smallies. You can just simply flame strike bat on those. Yeah, that one is pretty enjoyable to do. These bosses, there are some interesting things you can do with these bosses. Mainly talking about stuff like the Mega Taste that Trixie does. This one you can either choose to block, you can either choose to blink into the hiding spot, or you can simply choose otherwise. This boss is, for that reason, pretty interactive. It's pretty fun. There's always going something on. The other boss, Nano, he's just simply in the back trying to kill the whole party. In the meantime, you're trying to blast these at the same time, as if one of those get killed before the other one will enrage. So that's mainly why you want to try to focus down the Nano once the Nano is down. But as you can see, this boss is dying within a minute, and this is on a 27 key. The reason for that is that just the amount of stats we're currently having. As you can see, we're at 9 stacks with Zap. 9 stacks with Zap and with 5% haste is insanely broken for your boss damage. This part before Gunker is insanely spicy. As you can see, there's about 8 smally gunters or grunters, and these ones, they can do melees. The problem is they're not GCD or MS capped, meaning they can just 8 of them gangbang one person and that person would just get 100 to 0'd. Binding is probably the most broken spell for this pack. Just make sure you have like a binding down and then AFK in the back. But these mobs, they are they can, as you can see, they just decided to turn around, do one hit, I think, and this guy was almost gone. Yeah, it was hilarious. So yeah, as you can see, the damage intake, if it's one, it's no problem. Like this one is hitting me, but it's no problem. But then if they swap target, they frequently like to swap target. So if you're standing, for instance, just here or here, and they all swap at you, well, you're almost gonna get one shot at that point. Fortunately for us, we're hard chilling. We're just backpedaling slowly, getting a Frost Nova down just to make sure they're not actually getting to us. And we waste one rune of power, but it's not the end of the world. Obviously you want to keep your rune of power for this pack, as this pack you just want to kill the shaman. Once the shaman is killed, there will be no root effects or being cast, so after that you can just simply, in my perspective, simply chain with these as well. It's just that the shaman, you just don't want any cast going off. As you can see here, there was a little grunter alive from that pack. It was going from there all the way to there. The best thing to do is just bring it in melee, because if it's melee you can stun it, you can bring it to the rain of fires, or perhaps through the ground effects that will do passive AoE damage. But then again, there's also an argument to just completely ignore the mobs from your brain, just by not even interacting with anything. Just by seeing them, you just ignore them, as our damage. Just walking the whole time, you're not casting fireballs, you're simply scorching. For this pack you need to combust. If you don't combust this pack, you're not going to combust the boss. We had a similar issue with the first boss, as you can see here. If we're talking cooldown management, we used our combustion. Yeah, we used the combustion before the boss. On Fortified, no problem. Yeah, on Fortified this will not influence your run, but for, I would say, tyrannical keys, it's almost mandatory to have your combustion at the start of the pool. The reason we combust this pool indeed is that we don't have to combust these ones, so we can just simply send those on boss. Holding CDs or mistiming CDs can be very costly on a fire mage. The main reason your DPS might be a little bit lacking is simply because you are misusing your cooldowns. Your cooldowns, it is not that there are certain specific timings, so let's say at 10 minutes in the dungeon then you combust. That is not a thing. It's just more talking about packs that are either dangerous or encounters that you want to speed up, for instance. So this last boss, or not the last boss, this boss on tyrannical keys, especially on like a 27, he's going to do so much damage. There is no shot you don't want to get into that boss without CDs, as it means that you will ignore another shockwave, which another shockwave that literally does 80% of your party's HP. You want to ignore those, obviously. This pack is dying pretty soon, so what we're doing is we're simply holding our combustion as well as our SKB combustion. We're simply sitting on those for that reason. We're just gonna cast our Tormented Orb, and then we're just gonna simply get into our rotation if the tank was pulling and playing around the mage. Unfortunately, this was a bug key, so any form of communication or setup was not possible. Let's just keep it at that. And here's gonna be the first rumble. As you can see, this rumble on a Fortified key is already extremely rough to deal with as a healer, as it's followed up by a shockwave. This means that you actually never wanna go into this boss without your combustion on pool. And it can be very easy to at the start of the pool, let's say here, yeah, there's gonna be like a ton of mobs spawning. Do not worry, guys. Do not flame strike. Simply just full send on single targets. You don't wanna get a fourth or even fifth rubble. Those are killers, because eventually the healer is gonna run out of mana. Your group is gonna run out of defensives. As you can see, this is one without defensives, and this one is really, really tough for the healer. Like, the whole group is almost dying. I get Angel from the healer, thankfully. Those ones, and this is not even on a tyrannical key, so that's the main reason why you just want to go full single target on this ad. After that, we're just simply gonna walk for quite a while, and this is probably my favorite pool of the dungeon. We're gonna chain this whole area. We're literally just gonna chain this whole area. We're gonna get the damage buff, we're gonna get the enlarged spell steal buff, and then we're just simply, I'm not sure if I'm potting this, but we're all very close to the 3 chest timer, so we should perhaps hold for that. I'm not sure what I did this key. I do believe I am sending pots, or yes, I do send pots. The main reason that I would assume that we're sending pot for is simply because it's already going to be a one phase. The last boss is going to be a one phase. There I got my damage, the enlarged spell steal, I got that off, and my damage is starting to soar immediately because, well, every spell I cast is doing 50% more damage, and then we get another one. So, I mean, this pack just literally died in less than 20 to 30 seconds with everybody CDs. It is also melee. We're already at 11 stacks, and 11 stacks is kind of the break point where, as you can see, just from no stat buffs or no anything, no loss, no PI, we're already at 70% haste. It's similar for most classes. So our damage during cooldowns, while having zaps, while having the whole group zaps, it is just insane how much DPS you're gonna be able to do, especially on like higher keys. As on a 27, they're still not fully scaled, the sub bots. The sub bots will scale completely at the peak on 30 keys. So yeah, on a 30 it's gonna be even more damage output. We're gonna kill this pack. I think somebody, oh no, I thought we were just gonna go immediately to the left there and get sub bots because one person died, but I'm not sure about that one. This boss is pretty fun as a fire mage. You're gonna get combustion on the tank buster, and you're gonna get combustion on the aerial assault. Besides that, I would say hold your orb. Your orb is gonna be used for the burn on the big guy. We're just doing our normal rotation, casting our SKB. We're casting our SKB after we cast Rune of Power, as we have no PI, we have no lust. After that, we are just simply doing our normal rotation, getting SKBs out, and then we're going to be running to the tower. Alright, we're instantly going to cast Invisibility to get through this fast. And then afterwards we're immediately going to press Soul Shape once this beam activates. Just like that, Soul Shape through, walk through that path, and then activate it. It's that simple. Unless you get stunned like me, of course. Kek W. So we're just going to wait for the stun, blink through, and then again walk through it, and then hopefully get some ticks in before we get sent down. This part is also pretty rough for healers if you're looking at the HP. And I already decided to go down. I need to set up my orb, and then I just need to go as fast as possible because else my SKB, it won't do anything basically. We're gonna get PI here. Pretty standard stuff on single targets, and then we're gonna cast our SKB. I would say yeah, immediately. Unfortunately we blinked out of our rune, but that's fine. We're just gonna try to get as much damage as possible within the shortest length, as our spells have travel time, so that's probably the reason why I blinked through there. And then that's it. We 3-chested the key with about 27 seconds left. Got some IO from it, not too interested in IO this season, but the main thing that we did was yeah, we just did a lot of single target damage. We just did what we needed to do in this key, and at least we didn't lose to the tank. Yeah, that's probably the main part. If you're doing single target rotation in a dungeon, you just don't want to lose to the tank in overall. But yeah, guys, that's it. Hopefully I taught you how to play mage in this dungeon. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, and thank you so much.